It's not a horrible noise, it's my saxophone. I feel all nice like now doing it with glasses, but because my other glasses are in the car. Anyway, the songs that tell the story of my life. And I was chatting to a friend of mine the other week and telling her about this, and she was saying that, you know, actually a lot of research has been done for Alzheimer's patients, that when they can hear music that they know from their youth, that they know from when they were younger, or songs that mean things to them, it can trigger memories that nothing else can actually do. So in a way, I'm protecting myself in this way. Maybe this playlist will come in a lot of use, but I wanted to use it today to tell you some stories. Mum, I want to put you in a YouTube video today. I'm making a video about different songs, and so I'm doing my first one, and it's this one. I just called to say I love you. Aww. There you go. I thought you'd like that one.
Aww.
So you're going to tell me...
which one do you need?
Did I not used to pick up a telephone and sing that song to you or not?
Yes, you did, yeah.
That's what I thought, you see. There you go.
Yes.
Obviously there are more songs involved in this playlist than I can actually show you in a vlog, and I can't play all the songs to you. I've probably only play a tiny fraction of each song owing to YouTube's copyright thing. But the next song in my playlist was a song, probably the first song I ever learned to play on the saxophone, way back in 1991. In fact, today may well be, I can't remember exactly, I think it was like February 12th, February 13th. It was just before half term, 27 years ago, that I got my first tenor saxophone. And a Matti tenor sax. It was made in Czechoslovakia. It wasn't a particularly great saxophone. It cost £495, I remember that, because I bought it out of my own savings, because I really wanted it. And one of the first songs I learned was this one, the Pink Panther theme. It was from a piece we were playing in school band called the Pink Panther Meets Batman. The day after we'd bought the saxophone, I remember we were going on like a family, sort of group families weekend away to a place called Littledale Hall near Lancaster, and we had to sit with my tenor saxophone across our laps for about an hour's drive up to Littledale. I remember going up, I think we were in the top floor, our family, and I remember one woman moaning that she could hear this horrible noise and me shouting back at her, it's not a horrible noise, it's my saxophone. So about 6 years later, 1997, 1998, this was a staple of our big band repertoire with both the County Music Centre Band and the Sixth Form Big Band. And here I am playing the solo with the Marine Hall in Fleetwood, which is the main concert hall in my hometown. Now in 1991, 1992, and in fact actually throughout most of my teenage life, I didn't want to be a jazz musician, didn't really want to be a doctor or anything else, other than those normal things. What I really wanted to be was a racing driver. If you're not in the UK and you're wondering what on earth Fleetwood Mac have got to do with Formula 1, that intro, well, that it's actually a bass solo, was used as the intro music for the full Grand Prix show on the BBC for years until it actually moved over to ITV. So yeah, Fleetwood Mac's The Chain always conjures up the desire to drive very, very fast. If you were to ask anyone, I would say kind of born between about 1978 and 1985, the question, what is love? There's a good chance they'd reply with this. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. Oh, the summer of 1994. I had my first kiss to this song. She was called Joanne. It was my first girlfriend. Well, like sort of teenage girlfriend. We went out with each other for 10 days. We started on September the 5th, 1994. This was still number one, just. actually quite a sad part of my life to talk about these two next tracks, because they actually reflect loss, and they remind me of losing my grandfather when I was 14. My mum's dad, he died very suddenly, and the song was, I think, #1 in the charts at the time, and it just brings back the memories, some of the lyrics as well. You know, never really got the chance to say goodbye to that granddad. He was fine in the morning, had a heart attack, was gone. The next one was my auntie, and I spoke a lot about my auntie's battle with cancer in this vlog quite a long time ago. And Claire de Lune was the piece that we went into at the crematorium during her funeral. It's about the only bit of the funeral I remember, as mentioned in that vlog. I don't really remember much of that day at all. It's really weird how it's blocked out of my mind. This song as well reminds me of my Auntie Anne passing away, because I remember painting something that she'd owned. It was a bedside table that I got, and I remember this song being on about. Those songs really are quite powerful memories when I think back to them. They do generate some quite powerful, strong feelings, so they're sometimes hard to listen to as well. And I'm sure you've got songs as well that can conjure up memories that are memories of a happy relationship, but maybe a sad ending sometimes. Now, way back in this vlog, I told you the story about when I scored at France 98, but 2 summers before that, now 22 years ago, or 21 and a half, let's say, 3 Lions, Euro 96 was fantastic. I remember, and it started, it wasn't that big a deal. I remember when England played Switzerland, I was doing an abseiling course as part of my Duke of Edinburgh. We got back, it'd been 1-1, nobody was that interested, but it was the week after I was doing work experience then at Rumours Music in Blackpool, and Gaza scored that goal with the dentist chair and all that, and really things started to pick up. There was the Holland game, beat Spain, and then the Germans, and we'll leave it there. I mentioned before the importance that things like Dinner Jazz, that was a show on Jazz FM by Helen Mayhew, how that introduced me to jazz clubs, to people applauding at the end of solos, to the clink of glasses and all that kind of thing. They were kind of the songs that were the soundtrack to my youth. There was kind of like Oasis and Blur that everybody else was doing a bit more dance music, which I'll come to in a minute, and then kind of the songs like Tequila and Hawaii 5-0, which we once played for Tony Blair to come on to at the Labour Party conference. Now, I left school with pretty good GCSE results, good enough that I could seriously consider becoming a doctor. When I chose my A-levels, I was advised that if I wanted to do medicine, I ought to drop music and do physics, chemistry, biology, and maths. That sounds such, I mean, how naive was I to believe that teacher then? Anyway, I started doing physics and maths, and I hated it. And I just remember packing up the books. By the way, don't do this unless you're really keen on doing music. Packing up the books, sticking them on the desk, saying to the teacher, I'm out of here, I'm going to go and do music. Going and seeing the deputy principal and saying, I want to change to do music. Choose the subjects you're going to really enjoy doing. Get the good marks, get subjects you're into. Don't do subjects that you think you should do. Get the good marks first. You can always do access to law course or med course or whatever. Do something you're interested in. Anyway, the thing I wanted to talk about was the music I encountered during my A-level. And that was, we did the symphonies, so we did Haydn's drum roll, but Mozart's 40th, and we also did the Forshaw cello concerto, which is an amazing piece. I love going back and listening to that piece, and if you haven't heard it in its entirety. But as all teenagers do, I wanted to fit in a little bit more, and, you know, being a jazz geek, it wasn't a great way at the time of pulling the girls, let's be honest. So I wanted to get a little bit more into, so we say, more socially acceptable musical activities than playing jazz, even though I was out playing with the Blues Brothers that time. And I started getting into DJing at house parties. I mean, I was a musician anyway. I loved music, was passionate about music. And so, you know, I had quite a meteoric rise, really, when it came to the DJing stuff, because I went from kind of DJing house parties and youth clubs to doing 5,000, 10,000 capacity nightclubs in about a period of 18 months, and it was quite a rise. I got picked up, I think it was Holsten Pils or Heineken, I was trying to remember who it was. We did a tour, and I distinctly remember being launching Zombie Nation, which I was with a company then in Blackpool, and we used to get all the promo material a month before it came out, and so regularly my postman would bring a stack of about this thick of vinyl every single week, sometimes 4 or 5 times a week, of different white labels, different things, and I had to play those in the club, see how they went down, and then I had to put my chart into Radio 1, to DJ Magazine, to Mix Mag, a whole load of others. I used to get phone calls from promotion companies going, Dan, where are you charting this week, what's happening with it? Those are the days. I also had a 70s alter ego called Freddie Flares, but that is a whole different story. Then when I was 19 turning 22, say three things happened, and which is reflected in the playlist. The first thing was I had an operation on my nose. I've mentioned this before about how it aggressively shortened my septum, which meant I couldn't play with a double armature anymore. And I remember doing that, and I remember saying I'm a musician. I remember sort of having this sea change in my mind going, I don't want to DJ anymore, or I'm not as keen on it anymore. I want to do the saxophone, I want to do it. How do I do it? And then I went to hear Courtney Pine and see Courtney Pine. You can say that about Courtney. It's definitely an experience with his band. And the track I've included here is Jazz Step from his album Back in the Day. And the energy I felt at that Courtney Pine gig was the same, if not better, than the energy I felt when I was DJing in nightclubs. And it made me think, do you know what? Maybe I can play the saxophone again and be cool and have this same kind of energy. Because at the time, 20 years old, I didn't want to play smoky jazz clubs and those kind of things. It was just wasn't what I was after at that point. So Courtney really opened the door for me. A few years after that, I met Branford Marsalis at the Royal Northern College of Music. He invited me over to New York. I left for New York in March 2005, came back end of April, had an amazing time, and this was the track I had to listen to on the way in because of the guy who invited me to go there and the fact I was an Englishman in New York.
I'm an Englishman in New York.
And round about that time, I became really aware of John Coltrane's A Love Supreme, and I've performed it on many, many occasions in some amazing venues like Ely Cathedral in London, recorded it on Jazz Vespers and a few other albums. It made a huge difference in my life. It made me realise about what my music should be for, and I've talked about it a lot in this vlog. I mean, you can watch that, but the music has to be on there from A Love Supreme. That led me on to studying music and theology in London in 2005. In 2006, I met Katie, again, spoken about it in this vlog, but I composed this piece for Katie called The Princess of County Down. Less than a year later, we were dancing to Elton John for our first wedding song, and yeah, we moved over to Belfast. And then I had to learn a load of Van Morrison tunes, and not just Brown Eyed Girl. I also started to realise that Van Morrison must have had a lot of different musicians playing with him, because nearly every musician that I worked with in Northern Ireland had at some point played with Van. Whilst we were living in Belfast, our daughter was born, and a great song by Frank Sinatra, Once in Love with Amy, Always in Love with Amy. Shortly before we left Belfast, I first heard Jan Garbarek live in one of the churches there with the Hilliard Ensemble, and that led me on to understanding about, kind of thinking about the saxophone as less as this American jazz instrument and kind of understanding the whole palette we've got on our instrument. Mentioned it more in the Jan Garbarek Advent Calendar vlog here. Bon Jovi is purely in there because it's Charlie's favourite song to play along with the drums, my little boy. I'm not a really big fan of it, but he likes it, and so I had to put a song in that sort of reminded me of Charlie. And the rest of the music on there is music that has been important to me over the last few years. So music that I've included on albums, music that has inspired me on track. Now, I have had some bad things to say about Spotify and Apple Music, and from a creator's perspective, I do find it difficult. But from a music student's perspective, and from someone who wants to explore music, having the playlist is just amazing. Being able to build here nearly 6 hours of music that can tell a story of my life in a 10-minute vlog, this might be a bit more than 10 minutes when I come to edit it, has been quite extraordinary. So I hope you've enjoyed my little story today. I hope it resonates with you. I know a lot of you are roughly around the same age as me, maybe a bit younger, maybe a bit older, but the great thing you've got with these things, you can put the playlist together for your own life. So please do. I mean, one of the things I always want to do with these videos is inspire you guys to make your own material, whether it's a blog post or a vlog or anything, even just putting the playlist together. Do it. Please do it. Please do it. Put your playlist below. Let's share some music together and tell about the different ways that music has inspired us throughout our lives. Don't forget to check out yesterday's, or the last vlog anyway, here. This is what I was up to this time last year. Hit subscribe, but also be a super subscriber. Head to my Patreon page. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you very, very soon.